Perfect.
As
soon as it starts working, we got some beeps in the background. Alrighty. I think everything's rolling, dude.
I think we might be in there.
All right. Ooh. So, this is another podcast. We're doing more podcast, and this is pod. My heart's beating so hard. Why am I nervous?
You want a drum roll?
This is pod 11. Give me the keys. And today's guest is a new friend. Last podcast was all about friendship. It was all about being friends, and now it's all about new friends.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the podcast, bro.
Thank you, brother. It's good to be here. I've been listening 10 episodes now. I just finished the 10th one on the drive here, actually. I listened to about half of it this morning, the other half on the way here.
Dude, I love that. I love that there's people out there listening to it. It's crazy. So are you cozy? Are you
bro. Love it. Welcome to the office. We're at my workspace, but we are turning this into... I feel like anywhere the podcast goes, it's like a church where two of you gather, there I am. You know what I mean? Like, the podcast is wherever it happens.
Right. So I want to get as comfy as possible. So I almost like to, chill, kind of recline and just feel relaxed.
Kick back, bro. Yeah, these chairs are nice and cozy. They got the nice we can really slouch down in here and get terrible posture.
Yeah.
Good for conversation though.
No, this is perfect, man. So pod 11, we've been talking about this doing this for how long? Like a couple weeks maybe?
Couple weeks at least. Yeah, since you started your podcast for sure.
Yeah, so I want to give a little bit of backdrop on kind of how we know each other. So basically, we've always kind of been messaging on IG, just I feel like we have a lot of crossovers on interest. And I started the podcast, and out of nowhere, you just laid it on me hey, I have a podcast. And I had never known. So a lot of crossover in just mutual interests. We're from the same hometown. NKY, the dirty streets of NKY. That's where we are. Let's build some context. Where are we at? This is podcast 11. We're in NKY. Where are we at, Aaron? Where are we at?
Fort Wright, Kentucky. The great state of Kentucky. The Commonwealth, if you will.
This is where we are. And what's the space? Where are we at? What's the space?
Physically, we are at our real estate office. That is my place of employment, Hand in Hand Realty, Fort Wright, Kentucky. If you're looking for a house, give us a buzz. You can find us. Yeah,
we're in a nice office space. We have really nice leather chairs. We have a giant table to ourselves. We just pulled up here, chit chat. This is the first time we're hanging out.
For sure.
First time, we're just hanging out.
Outside of being at a gym or with other people, this is our podcast is our first real hangout.
Yeah,
kind of cool.
Brother.
I think what better way to get to know somebody, especially two people who are podcasters that. It's a practice in what we do, and it's an experiment. It's a dual released episode.
Yeah.
This is going to be a real fun one. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're just getting settled in. I mean, we're 3 minutes in, we haven't even talked about anything, and I just feel like I'm getting settled in here, so I'm happy. I'm still getting the mic kind of, because I can hear it. I have the headphones on now, so I can hear, and this is sounding good. You're sounding real clean, Chris. You're sounding perfect, brother.
I'm very excited about the audio setup. Not to get too into the weeds about that, but we were talking about it beforehand. My podcast is very primitive as far as my recording setup. It's just me and my phone, oftentimes in my car, and we got the mics, we got the audio interface, we really have we got the MacBook going. This is a good setup we got here. Got the GoPro running for a little video episode.
Oh yeah, the video. I didn't even realize that. That's my bad side over there, but that's fine. That's
not to get too self-conscious about how we look, but I don't know. It's I've done a couple of podcasts with the video before. Definitely never done one with this good of an audio setup. So, if I may take over for a minute, the first real podcasting experience I had, me and my buddies, when I was living at my condo in Southgate, we started a podcast, just the four of us, me, Kalen, Jake, and T. Sorty, and we would just talk about whatever. We did 10 episodes once a week. And then the second season, we called it, was a Game of Thrones recap for the final Game of Thrones season, and it all fell apart.
Oh, no.
By the end of that season, we were hardly even friends anymore. I mean, it really spiraled. But the podcast ended abruptly at the end of the final season of Game of Thrones. And I had a good taste in my mouth for podcasting nonetheless. So I don't know how long it was before I started screaming into the void. It's been 2 years, about 2.5 years now that I've been doing it. And mostly just solo episodes, but I'm really excited to start doing more of these.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so we have podcasts. We both do podcasts. Some things that I still want to create more context because I just don't want to, I'm always thinking about the audience. I'm thinking about the people that'll listen to this in my life, my network, my close friends, the people that I love. And I'm thinking that for you. So what should people know about us, like me and you? Like, I think we kind of laid it out that this is like very organic. This is just happening. Mutual interest. We met a couple times at a local gym back home. A couple really good friends. Well, really, a couple of my like best childhood friends you're also best friends with.
Yeah, a lot of crossover in those two friends, Kenton and Kyle. I mean, I grew up with them. You grew up with them. Somehow we didn't meet until high school. But at that gym, was it Body Shape Fitness?
It was that little underground spot with the crazy cuckoo gym manager.
Captain Hook from Peter Pan. Dude was like Captain Hook if he was on steroids. He was jacked. I'll give it to him.
He was tweaking every single day. You show up, he's sweating bullets.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing in that office,
just
brother?
Pumping iron and God knows what else into his veins. He was a wild boy. Kyle actually ended up getting kicked out of that gym because he was dropping weights, and he got into an argument with some old guy who was like, "You're disrespecting the weights." I was like, "Hey, man, leave me alone."
Dude, he did the same thing to me and my friend. I have a good friend named Mikey. We played football, and Mikey was just coming with me to get a workout in. And Mikey's deadlifting. We're in a basement, and Mikey's deadlifting, and the old man, he comes out and he goes, "Hey, why are you slamming all those weights?" And Mikey goes, "What? This is a gym."
Yeah.
Like we're used to like football where it's like the louder in the gym you are, the better. And this old guy comes out. He's like, "You're going to disturb the people upstairs tanning." Mikey's like, "Fuck." He's just like,
it's also, dude, it's like midnight. There's nobody up there tanning right now.
Right.
There might be a dude up there in Domino's. Shout out to Domino's. It was always so tempting. You'd walk out of the gym and smell those hot pies. Whew.
Ooh.
I love some good pizza. Went to Goodfellas last night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, one of our top, we got some buzzwords in the. What did you refer to your book as?
This is the Commonplace book.
The Commonplace book. I love that. I have a journal. I got it on St. Patrick's Day. I got like a little leather book, and I decided I'm going to commit to a journal because it's something I've dabbled with here and there, but I wanted to commit to it. Yeah. And also, it was like a comedy notebook. I wanted to start writing down some funny ideas, some stuff to bring into the podcast, and. The Commonplace book. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good name.
It's so like there's nothing in it. Obviously, it's completely blank. It's very open. It's kind of I like to write. So I've always been writing. But this is different where it's like inspiration. So you're thinking about, you never had a journal?
I have. I did a journal for like a good 6 months, but that was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay. So you've been journaling. Is that just like ideas that you have about life, feelings, just today's date, and you're like, here's where I'm at?
Yep, it was a daily recap. It was like my captain's log is what I called it. I love that. So at my condo in Southgate, that was really one of the best times of my life as far as like my routines and everything went. I was locked in. I had my closet. It was like a nice walk-in closet, and I transformed it into what I called the pillow room because it was covered in, like, the floor was all just pillows. And I had like all my meditation stuff in there. I'd go in and do my breath work and all that. And I'd like drawn all the chakras and where they were in the body on the wall. Like, it was really like my space. I could do whatever I wanted in. It was my first time I had my own place. I could draw on the walls if I wanted, and I did. But I had my journal in there. And what's funny is when my condo flooded, I lived there for about 8 months. Kaylin lived there for about 7 of those. And one night we got 4 feet of water in about 5 minutes, just out of nowhere. Yeah, crazy flood. And I found that journal recently. I went through my old drawer was in storage, and it's all crumbled up. You can read like maybe 3 or 4 pages of it, but it's cool to know it still exists.
Yeah. Well, this thing here is like, It's just some words. So yeah, I mean the commonplace book. So yeah, we had run into each other a couple times. We knew of each other, and then I feel like things changed when the podcast came out, because when you told me, hey, I'm doing you called it a secret practice podcast.
Yeah.
And this is on IG. He's just like, this is after the first episode. He's reaching out to me and he's like, giving me, showing support, saying this is cool. And he's like sharing like, that he's got his own podcast and, screaming into the void. You've been doing it. So when you said secret podcast, I was like, oh, cool. He recorded like one episode one time and he's sitting on it. Like he's never put it out. And then you point me to it and I go to Spotify to look at it and I start scrolling. He's got hundreds and hundreds of episodes of like topics he's talking about. Like this is a well-established podcast. And I'm like, so the question that came to my mind is, why haven't I heard about it up until that point? Why haven't you been more vocal in public with the podcast?
It's about time that I do start advertising it to my friends and family. The people that I've shared it with are the people who have been on it. And outside of that, there's that weird barrier between where I started it to be a practice podcast, like the concept, screaming into the void. Like I have my phone. I think I started it, honestly, when I was at work one day. I was working at Amazon, and I would have like these 2.5 hour breaks in between my shifts where I'm just sitting in my car listening to podcasts. And I had ideas that I wanted to share back into the world. So I thought, let me just start doing this. I'll get some reps. One of the things we talked about off air, I used to be a fan of this rapper. I'm still a fan of him. His name's Felly. And he had a quote on Twitter one time, just a thing he said in passing: live the life before you pick up the mic. And that resonated with me when I thought about starting a podcast, because I was like, I want to have something to say. I want to be practiced and like, I want to be eloquent with my words, and I know I said that poorly, but that's ironic. But yeah,
the sentiments are
there.
Are there? Yeah. What has? I mean, so you started it out. You were listening to podcast. The quote was, "You got to live some life before you can."
Before you pick up the mic, something to that effect.
Pick up the mic. So what did that really mean? Like, live some life before you pick up the mic. What did that mean to you?
When I heard that, I was probably 18, and at the time I thought music production is where I wanted to go. And I still love music, and I love the idea of music production. I try to pick up my guitar and play every now and then, and I think about songwriting. I love the idea of putting ideas out into the universe, and that just a musical guy in general. But at that time, in that context, I just thought, I don't want to be that kid who picks up a microphone and makes a bunch of noise and doesn't have anything to say. Like, if I'm going to ask people for their attention, if I'm going to draw people in, I got to have something ready for them. For a perfect example, Kill Tony. You see people who put their name in the bucket, they get up on stage and go, I didn't actually think I'd get drawn. I don't have anything to say. It's like, well, why did you put your name in the bucket, dummy? Yeah. And they deserve to get roasted.
Yeah, and those people get torn apart.
And I've put my name in the bucket at Kill Tony twice now, and I had a little napkin and I wrote my ideas on it, and I wanted to prove, if I do get drawn, I might not be funny. I might have 0 jokes that land, but I tried. I at least made an effort.
You're being intentional about it.
I'm being intentional, yeah.
And you're, if the opportunity is available and opens itself up, you want to be ready to step through into that.
Yes.
So you're being prepared. So was that kind of like what the podcast was? It was like, because I could tell, because I've experienced this 2 weeks ago. I've been putting out music. I've been being creative and like putting it out there. It takes vulnerability.
Absolutely.
So when I went back and started listening to your first podcast, I mean, I think your first one was like, yeah, I'm just testing to see, like, I think you recorded it like off your computer or something, and you were like,
about right.
You're like, I don't know where this will go. I don't know if, this will be anything. No one will maybe hear this. Like, that resonated with me. But you had some sort of like long-term, was the podcast for you, was it about, I know you talked about being more eloquent, getting better with your words, speaking, just expressing. Is that kind of why you were like, I want to start this?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to get practiced in it. And I felt like I would have conversations with people as a young man. And the big thing that started, I felt socially awkward as a teenager. I think a lot of people probably do.
We all felt like that.
Yeah. And I started working at Starbucks. And for a while, I felt like I was like, as the kids say, I was picking up some riz. Like, I had the ability to get back and forth with adults and like even teenagers. They're a little bit harder to engage with. Like even when we were teenagers, like there was a weird social barrier and like in-person interaction. It felt like it's probably even worse now after COVID and all that jazz.
Right.
But I felt like I was picking up some real social skills in that way. And after that, I graduated high school. I went off to college and I started working at Amazon, which was a very isolated job. So for 2 or 3 years, I was by myself for hours a day, and the only thing I had was podcast.
Yep.
So I felt like I had lost some of that like social IQ and that ability to communicate well with people. But I felt like I had all these ideas now, and I was getting like to circle back to earlier, like live the life before you pick up the mic. I felt like I had some worldly things to say now. So, well, all right, now I got to get better at talking again because I got good at talking, then I got a bunch of cool information and ideas to share, and now I feel like I'm not as good at talking anymore. And interacting with a mic is way different than interacting with people anyways, but you know.
Yeah, it's awkward. Dude, I talk for a living. I'm in sales. Like I'm always talking to new I knock on doors and just pitch solar basically. So that's my job. That's my profession. That's how I make a living. And you're totally right. Like podcasting, it's like there's no sound now. See how I just stopped? No ideas. Like, so it can be really intimidating, especially with the technology. It's perfect for practicing communication because it's also, I've learned this, and this is actually why I started, is it's your internal dialogue you're developing and curating and honing in the craft of your internal dialogue. You might record something. Mom's calling.
Hey.
I got to answer
Yes,
Mom
sir.
real quick. Hey, Mom. What's up? I did not. I'm doing something.
Oh, good.
Well, let me read that text real quick. Hang on.
No, it's okay. I'll just ask you.
Let me read it. You said hello. Oh, she does like using bath bombs. Yes.
Okay. 'Cause if she didn't take baths, then it wouldn't be appropriate gift. Okay.
All right, Mom.
All I wanted to know.
I love you so much.
Okay, I love you too.
All right, Mom.
Sorry to bother you.
You're fine.
Bye.
You're fine. Bye.
We love moms on this podcast.
Mom, I'm trying to get. Are you close with your parents?
Oh yeah, very close.
Really?
Yeah, we've gone through our bouts for sure. Mainly like around that 18-year-old time frame. We got through that pretty quick. It got a little dicey there for a minute. And hey, maybe all of us were to blame, but I recognize that I had a big part in that as an immature teenager. So I'll accept that responsibility, and I'm happy that we worked through it.
Yeah, man. I think we've all experienced that to some degree. You want to see something crazy, bro?
Yeah.
Look at my phone. It's on Do Not Disturb
And that
and silent.
Still rang.
Like-
Do you have your mom in like your favorites? Because I know there's settings where like
She is in my favorites.
that's why. And I set mine up intentionally like that so that there's 3 or 4 people that no matter how hard I try, their calls will come
I
through.
know.
I can't avoid them, and it's probably a good thing.
God, I mean, I don't know what to do. I'm putting my phone on Do Not Disturb and silence. Double
Dude, if
barrier.
I was on the Joe Rogan pod, if I was on JRE and my phone rang and it was my mom, I'd answer it. I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Sorry, Joe, my mom's calling. I have to see what this is." And I think he'd respect that.
Well, what were we talking about? I felt like we were getting somewhere.
Talking about like
Before
just
Mom
my
called.
general experience with podcasting and why like my work experience and how that kind of led to this, where I got some experience in the world just through listening to others, and now I feel like I have some stuff I want to share back. Not that I want to continue learning every day. I think the life of an academic
Yeah.
it never stops.
You like school? Did you?
Yeah, I liked school a lot as a kid. I mean, definitely by the time I got to middle school, high school, I thought it was lame because of my friends. So I was like, I'm just here to have fun with my buddies, and learning is lame. I don't want to get good grades. I want to get C's and just barely get by.
Yeah, yeah.
I was one. I like whatever that personality type is, where like you're smart enough to do well, but you're dumb enough to not want to do well. That's me. I could have done well. I didn't want to do well, and now I regret that. I probably should have taken it more seriously. By the time I got to college, I mean, I locked down and I got through that because there was money on the line. I just didn't want to fail classes and have to retake them.
Yeah. So you did go to NKU?
Yeah, graduated at Northern 2021, COVID graduation. Had to wear a mask. There was like probably 50 or 60 people in my graduation because we all had to be 6 feet apart.
Dang, COVID graduation. Wow.
Very strange. Yeah, I guess it was my junior year going into spring break. We never came back. We left for spring break and that was it. All my buddies went down to Florida, and like on their way down was when all the drama happened, and they were like, all these young people going to Florida are spreading COVID throughout the Southeast. And it's like, well, how? They left yesterday.
Right. Yeah. So you started, so you didn't really, in high school, you were just kind of like, you didn't really care about class because it's kind of it's more of a social thing in high school. At least it was for me. And then when you committed to going to college and it was like a choice that you're making, did you get more invested in your studies, or was it kind of like,
I wish.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I had the pressure of my parents wanting me to go to college, and like I knew that from a young age I was going to go to college. That was well determined, and I was accepting of that path. I wasn't like super resistant to it. There was a short period of time where I was like, I hate school, I want to drop out, but that was just the anxiety of the realization that I was becoming an adult. So I got over that, and I knew I wanted to graduate, and I wanted to study business. So, yeah, I was a dedicated student. I knew I was going to do all right.
Yeah.
The big thing was just keeping my head on straight and not diving into too many temptations of college.
Right.
Because they're around, especially I lived on campus at a small in KU, there's not too much happening on campus, but there's parties here and there.
Yeah. So you were, because you said academic, so I was thinking, okay, you strike me as more of someone who loves to learn, but kind of outside the confines of a classroom.
Yeah, I want to learn what I'm interested in. I'm not a big fan of being told what I need to learn until I got to college, because then it was like, I'm choosing the field that we're studying. You tell me what I need to know within that field, and I'll listen. But I definitely had a little bit of a struggle with authority in high school. I did not enjoy many of my teachers. I got along with some of them. The ones that I think the how do I phrase this delicately? The easier classes that I took, I headbutted with those teachers more than the harder classes I took, because my brain was stimulated in those harder classes.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So the easier when I'm sitting around bored and I've already completed all the assignments, like, you know what I mean? I'm bound to monkey around a little bit.
Yeah, high school was kind of a joke to me, but because I played football, and I guess I got a little bit lucky because school just always felt so easy to me. Like I got A's and B's, and I tried, but I never did homework. Like, dude, I'm not doing homework. I'm going to get it done here, give it my best. And I guess, I just kind of breezed through academically, but high school to me was more about like, experiencing real feelings of like anxiety for the first time, or thinking about the future, or the social element of just getting older. And like, that's so much going on when you're at that age. And it's like, school's kind of like the last thing that you're really like super duper concerned with. I mean, my little brother, he's 10 years younger. My little brother's name is Aaron, by the way.
No
I don't even know if I introduced you. You're Aaron Vince.
Yeah.
You're Aaron Vince.
Nice to meet you, brother. Officially.
Yeah, man, this is insane. But yeah, so I have two good friends. Well, I have a little brother named Aaron. My good friend Aaron Coyne, he was with me and Isaiah at Red Rocks for Gimme the Keys, and now you're a third Aaron that's like, and you guys all spell it with two A's.
That's
it's
pretty
triple
sick.
double A. It's crazy. It's insane. But yeah, I don't even know what we're talking about. I mean, I feel like, like we're doing this podcast. You have a podcast. I have a podcast. You've done a lot more podcasts. I'm just getting started. I genuinely want to ask you this because you have a different perspective than me, because I'm making my own podcast. You've listened to a few episodes. What do you think of my podcast?
I think it's good, dude. I think you've gotten a lot better, too. The first couple episodes, it seemed like you were very focused on the process of podcasting, which I'd love to listen to. I don't know if other people do. And maybe I heard you had an episode where you were talking about the retention rate and the viewership. Maybe that's why in those early episodes they might have dropped off. I think when you start, like your episode with Isaiah, when people listen to that, they're going to love it. They're going to get the feel for the podcast. Same thing, hopefully, with this one. Hopefully this resonates. And it's when two friends are talking, or two people are talking even and becoming friends, like people can pick up on that energy. It feels like they're in the room with you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what people like, is conversation. And, I think my take on podcasting is very unorthodox, a little outside the box, because to me, I started the podcast. I knew it was going to just be me talking mainly. Like that's what I wanted it to be. And it's like, I know no one's really going to care about a guy talking to him by himself in a room, you know? Like I get that people aren't really going to follow that, but for me, it's kind of a practice of communication, like you were saying, you know? It's getting feedback on what your own thoughts are, like your own feelings and intuitions. It's that. It's also creativity. It's thinking in real time, because I have a background in making music. I have a background in writing. And podcasting, when it clicked in my mind, I'm like, podcasting is the combination of these two things. It's audio, but it's telling stories. It's this in-between format. So I have a kind of I don't want to say unique. I don't want to act like I'm some special, but I have these two creative avenues that I've been kind of working on for like 6-7 years. That's a long time to be creatively getting a skill going, like writing online, coming up with stories, and then making music, producing the songs, writing the songs. So podcasting to me it's super creative. I know it's storytelling, but it's also to me performance art. It's performance art. And I can be, you know, I have no qualms with saying performance art. It's poetry. It's sales. It's tonality. It's like all this stuff that's in my life that matters to me. The podcast is like, you know, it's like a bus. It's like all these different forms of Alec, like these shades of Alec get into a bus. The podcast is the bus, and we're going somewhere. We're getting somewhere. We're getting to things that matter. And I love that. I know it's the right thing because it feels so important to me. Like it's so deep set in my heart and my mind. It's also a way to feel more. It's a way to be more expressive. It's a way to like be more in tune with the world. And that's all that I need. And I struggle with, I want people to listen to it. I really want people to listen to it. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. But at the end of the day, this is gonna be exactly what it should be because it matters to me. And it's like, it's so fulfilling just to me. And it's sustainable. If someone's starting a podcast because they want to make money off it, they're trying to get well-known and famous, all that stuff, like that's not sustainable. Someone's going to do it for a couple weeks, they'll try a pod, and then they'll give up on it. It's done. So this is just so deep rooted. It's like augmented into my life already. I just did a podcast with Zay, like my best friend. Like we're sharing the joy of like, this is amazing. Like, why haven't we been doing this longer? You get it, obviously. And then just to feel like, man, we have new friendship is being created. It's like, it's all the things. It's just an overwhelmingly positive thing. And it was hiding in plain sight for so long for me. Like it was just there. I'm listening to him every day, but I never consciously put it together of like, you can do this. Like you can do it. You are the guy that is able to do this. And it's like, I've had this realization where it's like, I am that guy. Like I am able to do this. And so that's kind of my take on podcasts. But you've been doing it for 2 years. What do you think it is that's sustained you talking and screaming into the void for 2 years? Why are you screaming into that void for so long?
I think it's the same thing. I want people to listen to, and especially now that I've been trying to focus in more on it. Just I think the world's lacking a lot of human interaction. I think that's why there's such a demand for podcasts. I think that's why the format has become so popular in the last couple of years. So many people are isolated, and it's become like worse and worse. People are just going more into their shells. They're not coming out. Mm-hmm. So to see the human interaction and like it happening organically, it's like freestyle human interaction. Like it's all just happening in real time. We're in like this flow state where ideas are coming through like a carousel, and you might choose which animal you're going to hop on and ride for the time, but there's a lot of different things going by that you may choose to latch onto, and different wormholes that we can be launched down. That's what interests me about the podcast the most, is just seeing where it takes us in real time. And that's why I love listening to them about, like, I've tried to show my mom clips of podcasts, and she'll be like, they just talk in circles. Like, that's what I like, though. I think in circles sometimes. So it makes sense to my brain where they'll be like, all of a sudden we're talking about this, and boom, now we're talking about kickboxing. And then from kickboxing, we get launched into a topic about performance-enhancing drugs, and that launches us down a topic about baseball. And, you know, it can just shoot all over the place. And
bust all over the place.
It can bust
with your
all
ideas.
over the place. Yeah, man. I love the human interaction aspect of it. I think that's what I'm most drawn to.
Yeah, freestyle human interaction. That's a cool way to put it.
That's a big buzzword.
For sure. Freestyle human interaction. Yeah.
Because we do that every day. I mean, when you go to the store and you say hi to the cashier, but it's short. It's just nice and quick. So there's not too much weight to it. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm all right. Or, doing, everybody, how you doing? Not too bad. Everybody's got their little short saying. But to really dive into something, like, you get to learn about somebody, I think by podcasting with somebody and talking about this type of stuff, you learn what's important to people. You learn what their like life aspirations are going to be.
Right.
It's cool and we get to learn about each other. They get to learn about us.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I don't love about podcasting is that the listener doesn't get to get involved. And that's the hardest thing for me as a podcast listener. Like, they'll say something, and I want to respond. I want to get engaged. Like, oh, yeah, I have a story about that. Or, oh, I know where you're going with this. I know that same story you're about to tell. But you just have to sit there in silence.
Yeah. Do you still listen to podcasts even though, like, for the last couple years since you've been doing your own, you still listen to podcasts all the time?
Oh, yeah, religiously. I'm a big podcast consumer. Yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan, that's a daily for me. I'm listening to as much of him as I can possibly take. Other big ones, Flagrant Podcast with Andrew Schultz. Mostly comedians is who I'm listening to. And then a couple MMA podcasts. The Timbo Sugar Show. Sean O'Malley, current bantamweight champion of the world, has a podcast with his coach, Tim Welch. And that's I've been listening to them since their first episode. I've done a bunch of different like call-ins where like left messages and they've read my questions and stuff on the podcast. I sent in a video story, a very embarrassing video story.
Oh, snap.
Oh man, and it got a lot of laughs and a lot of views on their Instagram.
So you said who was that? You
this
sent
is
that to...
Sugar Sean O'Malley, the current UFC bantamweight champion.
I know that guy.
Yep.
Everyone knows that guy.
Yep.
So you sent in a video like asking a question on his podcast? He does.
They just requested. So I was subscribed to their Patreon, and they had a Patreon podcast and a YouTube podcast. And if you subscribed, you could send in video questions or just stories or whatever. And they said, just send in something wild today, guys. Like they had a little Dropbox on there. So I was driving home from work and I took a video and I told a story. I'm not going to repeat the story on here. If y'all want to find this, go to the Timbo Sugar Show Instagram page and scroll till you get to the bottom. It was the first ever like video submissions that they showed on their podcast. And like right before, he said, this is our first ever video, so we're going to see what happened. Boom, and there's my face. And I'm like,
no
oh,
way,
God.
No way.
So I'm watching the episode, like just thinking, like, I submitted a question, maybe I'll be on here. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, here we go. So they both just bust out laughing at this story that I tell. And I was like, I have to. So I put it on like my Instagram story just for my like close friends on that story so I could control who got to see it. Like 10 of my friends were hitting me up like, dude, I can't believe you got them to laugh so hard. That's so funny.
So was it good laughing or were they clowning you?
Oh, no, they were good laughing. Yeah, it was I was clowning myself in a lot of ways. It was very self-deprecating.
I see. So it was a good thing to have. You weren't embarrassed like, oh, I can't believe they put that up. You were like getting the reaction. You were being kind of silly.
It was like a comedy routine almost. Like there was a lot of comedic timing in it. I'll show you when we get done recording because it's very funny.
Yeah, man, that's cool. So that's one of those things that we have in common is we both just are big fans of comedy. We like to laugh. We like funny. Like, tell me about that. What do you like about comedy? What are you into about it?
I'm so happy we get to talk about this, dude.
Yeah.
Comedy was like the first like movie genre that I fell in love with. I remember being a little kid, whenever my family would ask, you guys want to watch a movie? I'd be like, comedy movie. I want to watch a comedy movie. Big fan of like Adam Sandler specifically as a kid. But I just loved all of the old like 80s, 90s comedies. That's what I grew up watching. Comedy movies kind of like they seemed more raunchy when we were growing up, like the modern, like The Hangover, The Dictator, those type movies. That was a lot more adult comedy. I like a good clean family movie. I love those.
You like clean comedy?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong, I love dirty comedy too, but I love for a movie, I love a good family comedy movie. Like just your classic Adam Sandler movies, like The Grown Ups, perfect example. That was a quintessential comedy movie in my childhood.
Yeah, that's a good one. Good lineup on that one.
Growing up and becoming adult, now I go watch Adam Sandler's specials, like his most recent one. The last time I got a tattoo, the artist Shout out to Morris, Mosaic Tattoos. He just opened his own shop this year.
Shout out Morris.
He was like, hey, do you care if I throw on Adam Sandler's most recent special? I've just been watching it a lot. And I was like, yeah, go for it. Like, as long as I can hold still while I'm laughing, because I know the Sandman's going to get me going. And it's the one where he's talking about being up in the International Space Station, and he's 69ing with the other astronaut, and he's like, and then Rob Schneider comes down on cables and like flies through and like,
oh no way,
dude,
on the stage,
the stage during his comedy hour. It is an absolutely hilarious special.
Wow.
So yeah, don't get me wrong, I love raunchy comedy now as I'm an adult, but yeah, it's just classic comedy movies.
Yeah, so for you, it's more about the movies, or would you say stand-up's an equal part of your fandom?
Now, yeah, I've developed into a stand-up fan, and specifically since I got my Comedy Mothership T-shirt on.
Hey.
Shout out to Austin, Texas. I'm heading back for New Year's.
Let's
we're
go.
Seeing Duncan Trussell for the New Year's show.
Oh, I love that guy.
Quite excited for that.
Yeah.
But definitely since I've been going to Austin, and I've become a big comedy fan in the last 4 or 5 years. Mainly since I started listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he's a comedian first and foremost. So got into that, and really, if we want to get way back into the origin of my stand-up comedy fandom was listening to Pandora, and Kevin Hart and Cat Williams had their bits would be on there, and it wasn't their full their full album was on there, but they would just random bits would pop up. It'd be a 10-minute story, and I'd listen to that, Cat Williams' Poor Little Tink Tink. That I used to fucking love that story. Poor little Tink Tink.
Yeah, it's funny, comedy, you mentioned Joe Rogan, he was a gateway for so many things. One is podcasting, he's the grandfather of all, podfather of all pods.
He gives credit to Adam Curry, but I think Joe Rogan launched it into what it is.
He took it to a whole different stratosphere for sure. But it's funny because I feel like not only is he so versed in the podcast, it's he's brought in people into the comedy world, and that's how I kind of got into it, because I'd say a good percentage of his guests are other comedians, fellow comedians, and so kind of bridging to that, I got into stand up. I mean, I'm watching the basic stuff on Netflix. I like Tom Segura. It's a lot of people that surround themselves with Joe. It's and I wish I could, name drop some super rare comedians, but it's I'm a pretty mainstream fan. I like Nate Bargatze, I like Theo Vaughn, I like
Shane Gillis,
yeah. I mean, all those guys, and then Kill Tony. I remember I used to listen to Tony Hinchcliffe as a guest on Joe's pod, and his voice always caught me off guard. What's this guy look like? And then I found Kill Tony 2 years ago, and that show just was a whole different creative way for comedy to live in, and I thought the concept of the show is just insane. So I've had some people have never seen it. You ever ask someone hey, you ever seen Kill Tony?
Pretty regularly. I mean, it's a thing that I talk every Monday. I'm watching Kill Tony, and I'll mention that in passing and be like, what? Just the name throws them off. Kill Tony, they think it's a horror movie or something.
Right.
It's a comedy show.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, it's a comedy show. It's the concept of the show is this: there's a stage with a panel. It's the same panel. They usually have a really cool guest. They always have a really cool guest, someone random. I don't think they release it. I don't think
it's always a surprise.
Always a surprise guest, so it could be anybody. But what they do is they have a bucket full of names. People in the audience have submitted their name into a bucket, and what they do is they'll pull a name out of the bucket, and the comedian gets 60 seconds of uninterrupted comedy. And they'll come up from the crowd. They get on the stage. Everyone's silent. Everyone respects. Everyone gives them those 60 seconds. It could be Joe Rogan sitting on stage. It could be the most famous person, Post Malone. Everyone's quiet. We're listening to this person. That's a lot of times it's people off the street that have
absolute amateur, first-timers.
First-timers. They come up, they do comedy. Then they took it a step further of, now that you just did, a minute of comedy, we're going to talk to you about that minute right now, right here. And if you, what's he always say on the show? Who likes it when comedians do good on the show? Everyone's yeah. Who likes it when comedians do bad? Yeah.
They go crazy.
Yeah. So people kind of want to see people bomb, because that's so, gosh, it's cringe, but man, you're just at least it's not me. Let's get this guy. And it's a safe space for that. If, most people, if you can roll with the punches, let's say your set's not good, but you can sit there and take the blows and be, yeah, that wasn't my best set. If you can get going, I love that there's redemption in the interview.
Yeah.
Some people flounder, they never recover.
Some people really flounder the interview. Some people have a great set and then are super unlikable in the interview. And Tony's like, okay, I'm done with you.
Yeah, and then Tony is just a savage host. I mean,
Don't want to get on his wrong side.
Me and my fiance, her name's Asia, we love Tony. Like, he'll just, when he does impressions, he's like, like he gets all that going. We lose it because we're like, he is just a savage.
You'll see him too. Like, so they'll make a comment and he'll look down and take a little note and he just looks back up with him with a smirk and it's like, oh man, what did he just write down?
Yeah.
And you're gonna know. He's gonna bring it back up. God,
Yeah.
his little one-liners can be so funny too.
Mm-hmm.
God, Tony's the best. He's the best host for that show.
Well, he's a great example of funny outside of like the format of just stand-up comedy. I don't even listen to Tony's stand-up comedy. I don't really like pay attention to it, but he's funny in a natural environment. Like, he's got the concepts of funny in his bone structure, and he's just always, he's the host, he's improv. The show's very off the cuff. I love that about it. And Tony's just, he takes the whole ship. It's his show, and he's an amazing host. But I wanted to ask you, you've been to Kill Tony a few times, right?
Yeah, so I've seen Kill Tony twice. So my buddy Joseph, he's been on the podcast plenty of times. He moved to Austin about a year and a half ago, and I've been down to visit him 3 times. I'm going down for my 4th time for New Year's, and he's been to the mothership 20 plus times. He goes there all the time. Every couple of weeks he's going to the mothership. So often that he doesn't even tell me anymore. He'll be like, oh yeah, I was at the show the other day.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were going. He's like, it's not that big of a deal anymore. It's right there in town.
Mm-hmm.
So he got tickets about 6 months out for 2 Kill Tony shows and was like, do you want to come for a week and a half? And I was like, yeah. So I went down to Austin. I mean, I can stay with him for free. He lives right on the lake, Lady Bird Lake. So we're right across from the downtown area. I hop on one of the city bikes. I'm there in 10 minutes. It's a lot of fun. So the first show we went to was at, both of those shows were at the Vulcan Gas Company before they moved to the mothership. So that's where I saw Kill Tony. And
so you got in early on the Vulcan
Gas
Company?
It was actually towards the end of Vulcan. It was like probably 3 months before the mothership opened is when I went to Kill Tony. Because I don't know the specific dates, but I'm
getting it mixed up. Vulcan.
That was the second place they were at in Austin. The first one that Tony refuses
Jones?
he refuses to acknowledge them, and he gets very upset if you say that name on the podcast.
Yeah.
They who must not be named.
Right. Yeah, so I got in, I guess I'm kind of, in the grand scheme of things, I was late because I was getting in on Vulcan Gas Company, but I remember loving the show, and then when they switched to the mothership, I felt like the first few episodes, like,
it took some adjusting. The stage is a lot smaller. The crowd's a lot smaller.
Yeah, stage is way smaller, and I just felt like the vibes were off. And me and my fiance actually, like, we kind of stopped watching it when it changed, and I'm like, it just feels...
The band isn't right behind them. They're spread out.
Yeah, they were up on, like, that wall initially, and it was just a little off. But so you... And I love Vulcan Gas Company. Like, the way that it just felt right. They had that room dialed in for sure. But so tell me what it was like the first time you're there, like at the venue. What was it?
It was surreal. So I had seen Joe Rogan prior to that in Columbus at OSU, so in a stadium show. But that was the first time being in, like, I mean, I'd seen a couple of comedy shows in small clubs, but like I saw Brian Callen for my 21st birthday in Cincinnati. But this was my first time, like, in my opinion, going to like this real, like, I'd never been to an open mic show like this. So we had great seats. We were like right in front of the stage. You could see when the comedians would walk out from the bullpen, you could see us on camera. You actually sent me a picture, but like when that episode happened, you were like, oh my God, I just saw you on there. I was like, yeah. We were there 2 weeks in a row. And, it was surreal. Tony comes out and he's right there. Red band's sitting. The band is so tight. They come out and got that place thumping immediately.
Red band's looking all green and
Red band looking
over.
gray like an alien. And then the drinks start flowing because at Rogan's Club, Comedy Mothership, there's a 2-drink minimum. You don't have to get alcohol. You can get Sprites or whatever.
Right.
But I'm an adult. I'm gonna have a tequila soda.
There you go.
At the Vulcan, I was with a couple buddies. There was 3 of us there, so I drank what they were ordering for the table because they offered to buy my drinks that night, and I wasn't going to be rude. They were getting us these IPAs called Electric Jellyfish, and they were 16-ounce cans. Those are the big ones, right? I'm not a big
a pint maybe
drink guy.
IPAs will get you.
Though they got me. I had my first one. I was about halfway through, and the second one showed up, and I was like, all right, well, I could catch up. So I down my first one, start drinking my second one, and the third one shows up. I wasn't even a quarter of the way through my second one. So I cut myself off. I was like, boys, do not order me another one of these because I'm blacking out and I'm a drink and a half in.
And you had put your name in.
No, the first night I did not, which
Okay.
is why I was like, I wanted to see how the format was. I wanted to get a feel for it and just enjoy the first show. And I probably had too much fun. By the end of it, I was a little too drunk and I was afraid that I was going to yell out and like interrupt
Heckle.
the show. I did not want to be that guy.
No,
So I was
dude.
just biting my tongue, like just waiting for the show to end. And it was, so I went back and rewatched that episode because I didn't remember a lot of it.
So you were.
I was
had
really in
some
my own
drinks.
head. I mean, I wasn't blackout drunk, but I was in my head about not interrupting the show because
That's crazy.
I was drunk.
Like if you're worried about not interrupting the show, like
so
you're-
much that it
your
ruins the show.
Yeah, your self control's like getting down to zero on that.
Correct.
one.
Yeah.
I
But
see.
because they would say something like they would make a joke and you want to be like, "Oh my god!" But like that's not the reaction you're supposed to have at a comedy show. Just laugh. Don't say anything.
Right,
Like, "Whoa, I
right.
can't believe that." Don't
Right.
say anything.
That's interesting. I've imagined that venue's pretty intimate, huh?
Very intimate. I mean, they are right on top of you, and I mean, it's involuntary reactions they're eliciting from these people. So like you'll see people like gut laughing, like just crying laughing, and that's fine. You're there to laugh. But when it becomes talking, like it gets bad. So the second week we went, the next Monday, I decided I was going to put my name in. I worked that whole week on my material. I would go sit at the Buzz Mill, which is the local coffee shop they all go to.
Yeah.
You'll see like Tony's always got his Buzz Mill coffee on the stage. So I went there, and that's where I was writing. And we actually saw, Jared Nathan. He's one of the golden ticket winners we saw him there. My buddy got a picture with him. I didn't know who he was well enough to feel like I deserved a picture.
Right, I get
So
that.
I respected the guy and didn't ask. But yeah, I went there and I had my little napkin ready and put my name in the bucket. And we took one green tea shot before the show just to get loose
Yep.
at a bar across the street. And then I had to wait there by myself. And when we were at, I'm trying to remember. Oh, I was in the crowd. That's right. So if you sign up and you're in the crowd, then you're just there. Otherwise, at Vulcan, they had a bullpen in the back of the bar. So they were still in there. You could see like 100 people just waiting in the back. And I was nervous the entire show that my name was going to get drawn.
Yeah, I'd be on one, like just on edge. I'd be almost on the verge of
Nervous.
throwing up.
Absolutely was terrified. And like every time they'd go to the bucket, my heart would drop. And I would just be like,
Yeah.
oh my God, please don't, please don't, please. And then they wouldn't draw my name. And like, damn it, I wanted them to draw my, like part of me did and part of me,
Yeah.
I was super torn.
Super torn.
I was going to bomb. Absolutely. I was not going to be funny. I had zero jokes. I had a couple of funny ideas that I was going to try to make laughable.
Yeah,
I don't even remember what they are.
I mean, it takes some balls to put your name in that bucket. Like, I just wouldn't do it because I know it would ruin the show for me. My greatest fear is public speaking. Ironically, as I do this, But yeah, so I just wouldn't be on edge. So you had made some material. Was
Yep.
that your first time trying to write jokes, or?
I had like messed around with joke writing before that. Like I remember a couple times I would invite my friends over for like an open mic night, and we would like 5 or 6 of us in a basement would like take a turn writing a joke and trying to make it funny for our friends.
Yeah.
And bombing hard, like having this super funny idea in your phone notes. You're like, all right, so I was at the store and I saw this girl, and it was a woman, but she had a really fat butt, and her kid, bombing immediately.
Yeah.
Like, you have this funny idea in your head and you're cracking up about it, and then as soon as you go to verbalize it, it's not funny at all, and you over-explain it, and you're talking. Well, it's funny because nope, you lost them.
Yeah, if you have to explain why it's funny,
You're dead. You're dying.
it wasn't funny.
It was never funny, and you should quit before you start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's interesting because it illuminates so much more of what comedy is. It's not just having a good joke, having a good idea. It's like the enunciation, Joe Rogan says the economy of words, which that's so true. It's your tonality. It's your body language.
Body
It's
language is huge.
timing.
Yes, timing is huge.
Use silence. Like, it's so many other things. It's a craft. It's a true art and a true craft. And so so you had just wrote on a napkin like a half idea, and you're sitting in the audience ready to go on stage in front of everybody. Joe Rogan killed Tony, like everything.
The idea, if I can remember correctly, it was something about Joe Burrow and the Bengals need to win a Super Bowl to put us back on the right timeline when we got thrown off by Harambe's murder. That was the general idea that I was going to try to make funny. And even saying it right now, I'm like, God, that would have bombed. And
It's funny.
It's a funny concept.
You're bringing in, like, you're making it local to
Cultural
a place.
reference.
Yeah.
The Ohio reference is there. The Harambe cultural reference is there. It's got legs, but it doesn't have much ass.
Yeah.
And that right there is how you get them back, boys.
Yeah.
You got to make it the funny interview at the end.
Right,
I was
right.
fully banking on being likable in the interview.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
relying really hard on the Ohio card. I was really going to play up that Cincinnati card.
Yeah. Man, so it would have been your first time if you would have got up there. Like,
Oh, yeah. I still haven't done an open mic because I want my first time to be on Kill Tony. I think that would be cool.
that's nuts, man. That's you're
Especially now,
crazy for
I
that
actually
one.
have I have a good amount of funny ideas in my notes that I feel like if I sat down with a notebook, I could make into routines. I'm not gonna even try to go through them, but just this idea that I had at the
let's hear
top.
some.
I saw an Instagram account called Scenic Piss. And it's just these dudes like in the mountains filming themselves, like their stream of piss. And I know there's a funny joke in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So I just had that Instagram account, Scenic Piss, at the top of my Instagram notes or my iPhone notes.
Yeah. That's almost someone else being funny, and then
Making
the
a
other
commentary.
thing. Yeah. That's the other thing about comedy is if it's not original, like they'll jump down your throat.
Oh, yeah. You cannot
know?
try to repurpose a joke. I've seen people
Yeah.
tell street jokes on there before, and comedians be like, that's just a street joke. You didn't come up with that.
Yeah, like we all know that one. Like,
That's like a your mama joke. You can't come up on Kill Tony and tell your mama jokes unless you are the king of your mama jokes.
you had better be like
The
that's
guy.
your bread and butter. Like you're the originator. Yeah, for sure. That's crazy, man. So you went to how many shows have you been to? Two.
So
Kill
I've been
Tonys?
to 2 Kill Tony shows, and I've signed up twice. So the second time I signed up is when it was at the Mothership. This was the most recent time I went.
Yeah, the comedy mothership.
Much different setup. I didn't have tickets to go, so I was just a person on the street putting my name in the bucket. And they had it at the bar next door called Shakespeare's, I think. So you go upstairs there, sit around and wait. And this is what I really enjoy. Each time I've gone to that, I've just met a bunch of different comedians like while waiting in line. Follow them on Instagram. And now like 3 or 4 of them have been on Kill Tony.
Oh,
and
cool.
I'll message them and be like, dude, I just saw your set. That was awesome. And they hit me back up like, bro, I remember that. We met in Austin. I really appreciate your support. You've been following me since then. So that's really cool. Like I've got this one dude, his name's Spencer. He's been on Kill Tony like twice in the last couple of months. And he's killed it both times. And like I've hit him up and like I'm going to try to go meet up with him and have a drink or something when we're in Austin next because he's still there. Like he's at the Sunset Comedy Club, which is Red Band's club. He's down there performing at secret shows and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
That's
really
so cool. Yeah, I mean, I would love to get to a show just because of the atmosphere, and I never even thought about that. Like you're in a space with other energetic, comedic people, and everyone's just there to have a good. Like the energy in there. Can you feel the energy like
Absolutely,
in the room?
it's tangible, and especially because at Shakespeare now. So while you're waiting to get on Kill Tony, they have an open mic going on. So I got to see a bunch of different people do their set, and then go on Kill Tony and do their set.
Wow!
Like when I watched the episode 2 weeks later, like the one girl, do you know the big girl Celia? She's like a recent like hit on the show.
Celia.
She's a big girl.
I'm thinking of that one girl, Brittany Splat.
The different girl, but
Different
this girl,
girl.
I saw her when I was in Austin, and she went up, she did her set at Shakespeare, and then her name got called. She went down and did Kill Tony, and then 2 weeks later I watched it, and I mean it changed her life. She's gone out, I think, with Roseanne Barr and opened for her. She went out and opened for Tony in Arizona. Like she's done stadiums now, or not stadiums, but big theaters.
Yeah, it's a huge platform.
And it can happen like that. Like Hans Kim, they took that guy from sleeping in his car to wearing a Rolex in about 2 months.
Yeah, and opening every single show.
Yep.
Yeah, the newest guy that I saw, it's about probably a month ago. The little guy that looks like a child, but he's 21.
Heath. I saw him at the Shakespeare open mic too. He was sitting right in front of me, and he was laughing so loud for every single person performing, like cackling, just being a great crowd member. And I was like,
Yeah.
who is this little guy? Like he looks like he's 12 years old.
Did
And
you
then
not know who he was?
Had no idea who he was. He broke out on Kill Tony about 2 months after that.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, I saw a video. It wasn't even from the actual source of the show. It was some people remaking content about this is going to be the next big Kill Tony guest. And I checked out his one set that he broke through, and it was so good. It was so funny. Like he He owned everything about his life, was breaking the fourth wall, knew what the audience was already thinking about him, and he just ran with it. And that was so... Oh, that was cool to see. Yeah, comedy. So we both like comedy. That's cool.
Yeah, let you in on a little secret too from some of the people that I talked to while I was signing up for Kill Tony. There's a path to getting on Kill Tony. You go down to Austin, you stay there for a couple weeks, and you do the right open mics. You get in front of the right people, and they'll put you on there. One of the guys that I talked to was recording each one of his sets. And he would post the set with sorry, buddy, but you're terrible. His comedy's god awful. And Tony told him not to sign up again because he went on his first time on Kill Tony was his 100th set, which that doesn't happen on accident. And he told me that when I met him, he was on number 70. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna have my 100th set on Kill Tony. And I was like, okay, the fact that you know that, and I've heard some other, Joe Rogan mentioned it too. He was like, if you come into town and you get in front of the right people, you do the right sets. There's a pathway to get on there, and they'll pretend like it's all random. But like Cam Patterson, that wasn't a random bucket pool. Cam came up from Orlando or wherever he was, and he was already killing it there. They knew who he was. They pulled his name out, and he absolutely crushed. But he had been around town for a couple weeks. So there's scout like Adam Egett. He's the guy. He's the scout.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure it's him. He's like the Joe Rogan's. He was the old manager from the Comedy Store in L.A.
All pathways lead back to Joe, brother.
all pathways lead back to Joe. Absolutely.
That's cool. So I had never known that. That's really interesting to me.
Tony would probably murder anybody who suggested that because I think the idea of the show is that it's all random.
Right.
So Tony, if you ever hear this, I'm sorry, and I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
He's not going to hear this.
He's never going to hear this.
Maybe he might. We don't know. What was I thinking?
If I ever get on Kill Tony, I'll tell him I said that. Go listen to Give Me the Keys episode 11.
Give us the keys, Tony, please, brother. Yeah, so fighting. What did we do a couple days? So
Yes,
here's a little bit of another side tangent. Kind of related, though. Super related. I don't know what I'm saying. I drive back from Colorado, as you guys know. If you're listening to this, you've been listening to the podcast probably. I drive back, and me and Aaron are like, let's make a podcast. Let's do it. And another thing that you've been doing that I think is like a huge part of who you are, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're really into MMA, you're really into kickboxing, boxing, that whole martial arts. You're into martial arts.
I am a martial artist.
He is a artist of the martials, and you run a class, you lead a kickboxing class here in NKY up near Florence, and we did some boxing.
We did indeed. We did some of the fisticuffs. So
Fisticuffs.
I started martial arts as a youth. I did Taekwondo when I was a kid, and I loved it. I mean, I was always interested in Asian culture. I always wanted to go to the Great Wall of China, still do. Fell in love with the Karate Kid series. Loved even the Jaden Smith Karate Kid movies with Jackie Chan, even though that was Kung Fu. Totally different subject if you really want to dive into that. Realistically, the karate that they did on the original Karate Kid, Okinawan Kempo Karate, is what I studied under my my sensei that I joined under. It's funny to even call him sensei. He would hate that I said that. His name's Mike, and he always asked us just to call him Mike. But this dude he's an absolute weapon of a man. And I met Mike when I was 18. When I was a freshman. I guess I was 19 at that point. I was a freshman in college, and I was searching for discipline, and I knew that martial arts was an avenue for that. I had that base as a child, and I knew I needed it again because I had gotten away from high school sports, and I was a lost soul, and I knew that, and I was well aware of it. And I was a little bit salty on the religion thing still at that point. I've come to my grips with religion, and we're back, baby. We're back like the Crusades, but that's a joke. I'm sorry. I knew I needed structure and discipline in my life, and I knew martial arts was going to be a good avenue for that. So I went and I found a karate dojo, and that was around the same time that the Cobra Kai series came out on YouTube, and I fell in love with that show. Started doing karate, and then fell in love with UFC and MMA, and it all spiraled from there. And now I teach kickboxing on Wednesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m., and I teach 5:30 a.m. jiu-jitsu Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Word. Yeah, so that's super cool to hear, just how you got there. I mean, just that. I have other questions, but I want to kind of stay on this kickboxing. So I've never done any martial art. I've never done anything. I was never a fighter. we used to wrestle with some good friends, like growing up. We wrestled in
On
the
the
basement.
trampoline?
Yeah, dude. I actually not even on the trampoline with Ken and Kyle, but like in high school, we had some friends where we put a bunch of mattresses down in my buddy's basement.
Oh, nice.
And it was just to the death, dude. Like who's getting choked out? And I actually remember, one night, super unrelated. I don't even know why I'm saying this, but 3 of us are fighting at once. I'm on the ground, and my buddy, his name's Mike Butts, he like steps, him and Noah, I shouldn't say their names, but they're fighting, and I'm on the ground with like grabbing someone's leg, and Mike steps on my face.
Oh.
His heel steps onto my nose and like crushes it, and gave me like it's still like a deviated septum or whatever, but he basically broke my nose one night. I was upset about it, but so that's like the extent of my experience for this. But we pull up to the dojo or whatever you call it. So me and Aaron we've met in passing at the gym like 5-6 years ago, but this is more like an intentional hangout. We'd never really met. I'm thinking, I was a little like, this is it's just an unusual way to meet someone. It's not it's natural in a way, but it's not at the same time. And so we pull up to the dojo. I'm there early. I get to, did I see Kyle first? Or?
Yeah. No, I came and got you at Billboards.
You got there
You were at the
first.
pool hall, so I drove by and showed you where it was.
So I'm at the pool hall. He's showing me where it's at because it's kind of in a discreet, it's a
tucked
hard
away.
place. Yeah, hard place to find. And we pull up. I'm like getting out of the car. I think me and Aaron are going to dap up. Hey, nice to meet you, dude. Aaron's like, hey, let's go. Let's get this stuff. Like, this is the dojo. Let's get into it. And he was just like all about business. Like, let's get in there. This is happening. He had such good energy. I could tell that he was excited to be like in that space, like where that's your space. And so, we get in there and, Kyle pulls up. 2 of my long lost best friends. Like I grew up with these guys. Like they were in my neighborhood. They were down the street. We used to do all kinds of ridiculous things together. We can't even talk about the stories we have because we were so young, so immature, so silly. Like, gosh, I'm not putting that out into the world on this podcast. But anyways, and it was just like I haven't seen Kyle. I haven't hung out with Kenton and Kyle in like a decade. Like so much time. Like it's crazy. Like we're different people, but all this like rehashing of memories in childhood and like things used to be so simple. We used to, get in trouble with our parents. Like I remember Don, I remember Shiloh, I remember like all the
Rest in peace,
like
Shiloh. You were a good dog.
RIP. Yeah, I had a cat named Kramer, and like it's just the dumbest things, dude. And anyways, rehashing, reconnecting a friendship, making a new friend. It was like no new friends, and then it's all of a sudden it's new friends. So we're making new friends, and we do kickboxing. And man, I'm a very technical person. Like I wanted to be good at it, and I'm patient. But yeah, we just started with the basics, 2-3 crossover, 3-2. Just getting literally like how do my feet stand? Like how do I put on these gloves? Like everything was so new to me. It was so fun. And I just wanted to tell you, like, you did a great job leading that.
Thank you, bro. I feel like I take for granted that I can hear some church bells. Okay, they stopped. I take for granted that people just know what I'm talking about when I go in there. And I'm like, all right, everybody gear up. And they look at me like, what do you mean? Oh, yeah, here's how you put your shin guards on. Duh.
Mm-hmm.
And then even with the combos and stuff, like, all right, first combo, 2-3, roll, 3-2, rear kick. And they look at me like I got 5 heads. I'm like, oh, yeah, right. So put your hands on your eyebrows. Okay, good. Feet wide apart. Good. A little squat in your stance. Good. All right, turn your hips in. Good. All right, now this is your fight stance. And I need to do a better job when I have my day one people. That would have been a good opportunity. My knee exploded getting out of my car and walking in the gym. And I have to go get that checked out this week because my knee is absolutely wrecked. Which is why I didn't get to participate that night. I just had to coach. And thankfully, our buddy Casey came. Kyle was there. Casey and Kyle are both students of mine. And Kyle, he started kickboxing with me, so he knows a lot of what I know. I've definitely advanced beyond him, and I've taken it a lot more seriously. But he knows a lot of what I've taught Casey too. So those guys are really able to help my new guys. So I had you work with Casey for a while. I had Kyle work with Kenton. Got to get the brothers together, let them wail on each other.
Yep.
And then we'd rotate, let everybody get some different looks. But yeah, dude, I love kickboxing. I love sharing it with people, and it's so fun. I always forget, like, for them some of it's their first time walking in an MMA gym. Like, that's a very intimidating thing. I still get intimidated walking in new MMA gyms. Like, when I travel, I like to drop in and train with people, and I'll get the nerves before I walk in, and I gotta like tell myself like, yeah, we're doing this. It's gonna be okay. These people are welcoming. They want me to be here. They're not gonna try to hurt me. We're all here to help each other get better, and you have to believe that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do try to do a good job of just welcoming people in and making it feel natural and comfortable. Like, we're just boys hanging out. We're going to learn how to fight, and we're going to have a great time.
Yeah. I felt like I was in really good hands. I mean, especially with Kyle. I mean, it's just such a good friend. And then I love that he kind of just beat me up a little bit. I love that he was leaning in, like, because I'm sure that's a big part of it is, like, learning how to take hits, like getting comfortable with getting beat up.
Yeah, it's one of the first things you really have to come to grips with, and it's a mental battle for a lot of people. I still am not great about accepting being punched. I mean, a lot of people, they flail back and they make these big reactions, which is what I want out of somebody when I hit them. I want to hit you and have you spaz out so I can throw a head kick. It makes it a lot easier if your guards, like if you throw your hands out when you get hit, boom, that head kick lands and the fight's over before it starts. So you have to learn how to stay composed, stay in the pocket, see what punches are coming, try to get your guard up. There's a lot of, like, early on we learn how to block. Once you've got the blocking down and you can be a punching bag, now we got to learn how to move our head and not be there. When they punch, we're not there. And then we learn parries, and we learn how to get shots out of the way. Like a punch is coming right at my nose, and I just, boom, I pat it just out of the way with my backhand, and I slit my head off the side, and it whizzes right past my ear. He just barely missed, but he didn't hit me. You don't have to get a mile out of the way. You want to just barely get out of economy of motion, economy of words.
Yep.
Fighting there's a huge component of fighting, and you don't want to gas out. That one of Rogan's things he always says, oh, somebody wants to punch you and they don't know how to fight. You just cover up, and you just back up, and you back up, and you just wait, and you wait. And how long do they have? 30 seconds? They got a minute? How long can they punch? Oh, now you're tired. Now we're going to fight. Put them on a heavy bag. Somebody who thinks they're a badass, okay, put the gloves on, put these 16-ounce gloves on, hit this bag just until you can't. And I've done it before. Put a timer on. All right, ready, set, go. Oh, you're done? That was 30 seconds. A round in MMA is 5 minutes. A round in kickboxing is 3 minutes. Street fight, there's no time limit. So...
Yeah, the depths of the complexity of, preserving your energy when you need to, learning defense, the mental aspect, the physical aspect, like, the idea of fortifying through, like, it's the ultimate confrontation. Our whole society is set up to avoid confrontation. We don't want to, I mean, that's just how we're set up. So it kind of turns all that on its head. And I remember, obviously I was thinking a lot because this is all new information. I'm like, okay, remember these things. But I remember the next day after it, wasn't sore, by the way, which means I probably could have gone much harder. Like, I was definitely taking it easy. But I remember the next day just feeling like I had already like processed everything, and I was like ready to like build on top of what I just learned and figure out, a new aspect of it. And it was really, I get why people are so all in and like addicted with it, because just that one little intro class, it was like, man, I want to go back type thing.
And I think striking is human nature. Like it's innate in our physicality to throw punches and to block our vital organs when we're getting attacked. So people can learn striking very quickly. And I think, like, you ever watch Naruto? Kakashi and the Uchihas, they have their Sharingan. If you can do your little copycat, if you can watch and imitate, you can learn martial arts very quickly. Where that changes is in the grappling arts. The grappling arts, you just have to put in reps and time. And that's why jiu-jitsu is so much more technical. I mean, I shouldn't say it's so much more technical. Oftentimes, jiu-jitsu practitioners are far more technical because you have to be, versus in MMA or striking, I should say, if you just land a big shot, you can put a guy out if you're less technical than him. If you hit harder and you're willing to take a couple punches to land a couple punches, you can win that fight. It's called a puncher's chance. There's really not a puncher's chance in jiu-jitsu. The more technical guy, more often than not, will win the match. Like athleticism and size are not as important in jiu-jitsu as they are in striking. That's a general rule. Obviously, there's always exceptions to that.
Yeah, interesting.
So I think when people first start striking, it opens up their eyes to, like, first of all, I don't know anything about fighting. And a lot of people are some people are humble about that and know that going in. Other people, that's a realization for them. A lot of, like, especially athletes will come in and think, oh, I could fight. Like, I played football or whatever. It's like, it is not the same, buddy.
I knew I couldn't fight.
That's good.
And I knew I was starting from the ground up. I had that right mindset. I mean, I know how I am. I've always said I'm a lover, not a fighter. I never ever wanted to fight. Like, it scared the crap out of me. Like,
I never liked fighting. Me and my brother would wrestle pretty much every night throughout our childhood, and I never got into wrestling in school because I made the basketball team in middle school and decided I wanted to play ball sports, and I thought wrestling might have been a little sus at the time because of the singlets they have to wear.
right.
I might be right about that.
Yep.
Hey, wrestling, we can wear cooler outfits, but whatever. So, but I would get in little spats with other kids. I mean, I got in 3 or 4 fights as a youngin', and
Really? I've never been in a fight.
I was very willing to protect myself and my friends and my brother. Like, there was a time we were at a football game at SK. I was in probably 7th grade, and there was a kid. He was probably a freshman, and he was picking on my brother and his friend. And he took their football that they were playing with, and he would throw it at him really hard and hit him in the stomach. And then he was like pushing him around a little bit. So I ran up and shoved him, and he was pretty significantly bigger than me, and he let me know that too. He's like, "Hey, you look like you're a middle schooler. Like, I'm a high schooler." He said, "How old are you?" And I lied. I was like, "I'm in 9th grade." He's like, "Well, so am I."
I'm 27.
Oh God. So I start swinging at him, just wild, and he's backing up, and like I didn't hit him once, but in that meantime, my brother and his friend ran up to get my dad out of the bleachers, and a high school girl comes over and breaks us up, like a senior, and she's like, "What are you guys doing? Stop fighting!" And I'm looking at him just with absolute rage, and right as my dad's coming down the bleachers, I smack this dude, like just absolute open palm, full bitch smack.
Let's go.
And everybody goes crazy. My dad grabs me, we take off, and he was so proud. He was like,
Your dad was proud.
"Absolutely, you protect your brother and your friends. That dude was a bully, and that's what he gets."
Yeah, that's a noble thing to do.
But I cried the rest of the night just from the adrenaline and the emotions. I was so upset that I was driven to do that.
Yeah, it just
I
worked
felt
up.
violated. Like, how could somebody make me respond in that manner? Like, I'm not in control of myself because of what somebody else did. Like, I let that affect me, and so that's a lot to like realize in the time. Like, looking back on it, that's really how I felt. Like, people can control your emotions via their actions and their words, and that's, I mean, the whole idea of a stoic, like the stoic philosophy, you want to be in control of your reactions to the external world. That's difficult when there's a bullying situation happening. Like, that really will set a young man off.
Right. Yeah. You listen to JP a lot, right?
Jordan
Jordan Peterson?
Love him. I actually just bought tickets to see him. I'm taking my family to see him in Columbus, and I got 2 tickets to go in Louisville. I'm going to try to get my brother to go to that one as well. I've loved Jordan Peterson since I heard him on Joe Rogan the first time. I bought both of his 12 Rules for Life's book, and that's been instrumental in my development. Like, I give Jordan Peterson so much credit.
Yeah. So you're going, he's doing a tour, the new one he just announced.
Mm-hmm.
You're already
We
going
Who
to see,
Wrestle with God.
You're already going to see 2 shows of his? Dang.
Yeah, I just went ahead, and when he announced it, I saw the pre-sale, and the pre-sale was like the next day, and I was like, "Oh, well, I'm just going to go get tickets."
That's crazy. So I just thought of this on the spot, but he's coming to Colorado Springs where I live in March. I was going to invite you to let's go see it together, and you can come out to Colorado. But you're already seeing 2 shows, so but yeah, I'm like super into JP as well. Like, he's just like you said, like, it's like very instrumental to development and changing how you think, improving the way that you think. Really cool is me and my dad, we just went on that trip out west that I talked about, and on the way back we were listening to a Jordan Peterson podcast, and I don't think my dad has ever like really listened to him long form, and I could tell my dad was super intrigued by just the things that he was talking about. And for Christmas, I got him 12 Rules for Life.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I just think he's going to really appreciate that. And it's honestly stuff, I've learned things from JP that they're just so deep rooted. And it's like, it's stuff that I don't think my parents even know. Like the lessons, it's like things that, how much better can me and my dad's relationship be if, and even my mom, if they took those rules to heart and actually, just that took them straight to heart. So yeah, that was cool. I might invite my dad out to the Colorado Springs one, because he's coming to literally the town I live in.
Yeah,
that's
you
crazy.
should do that. Yeah, and we'll go see him sometime. We'll make that happen, and I'd love to come visit you sometime and do something. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Are you gonna read his new book?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just like no questions asked.
If he comes out, I'll be reading it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back little side note, if you're okay touching on it, the topic of parents is a big one for me because I struggle a lot with that. I mean, I live with my parents now, and we butt heads on things, especially like with the whole Jordan Peterson. The realization we've come to is I get a little preachy at times, and they all feel like I'm shoving my ideas down their throats, and they might not be open to it all the time. And I'm just on one where I'm just rambling and coming at them with so much information. Specifically, my brother, me and him will butt heads a lot because I feel like I have an obligation to help them. But to them, it's like, well, who are you to help me? Like, clean your own room before you criticize the world, to get one of Jordan Peterson's rules for you. And I see that. Like, yeah, I've got some shortcomings that I need to fix. And maybe then, if I lead by example, if I live my life as an example, just for the sake of me living a good life, maybe they'll be open and to receiving some of what I have to offer. But it's hard. I mean, we've butted heads a lot where they've told me, like, we're not interested in hearing what you have to say right now. And that's hard. That's very disheartening. And I've told them that. I'm like, that hurts. And they're like, sorry. I mean, you got to understand, you can't force us to see the world the way you see it. And that's, I mean, with the idea of comedy, with the idea of podcasting, transmitting my ideas to their head, it's the economy of words and everything, it's very difficult to do. And then you get frustrated because you feel like they're not listening or they're not getting it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm the complete inverse with my parents. I grew up avoidance. I would kind of recluse away, and you know, I think that's a big part of why as soon as I turned 18, I was like, I'm going to college, and I'm going 3 hours away, a specific distance away from you guys where I could still drive home, but you guys
won't drive down here every weekend.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I'm at a point now in my life where I'm like, literally this trip home, Aaron, I'm a lot more vocal for obvious reasons, and it's like I feel this like deep sense of duty to save my parents.
I felt it as well, and it's hard because they're adults who have learned what they've learned. They only had the access to the information that they had access to. I mean, we've grew up with the internet. We've had access to Jordan Peterson and to Joe Rogan and all these guys.
Great teachers, yeah.
Great teachers. They only had access to their parents who might not have had the best emotional intelligence. I mean, really, when I look at it, like my grandma, a baby boomer, her parents were her dad was a World War veteran. He didn't have an education on raising kids. He had an education on war. That's what his life was. So to come back and then have babies, it's just going to be hard. How are they expected to teach all of that, all of those like the psychology lessons we get from Jordan Peterson about like how to develop a good relationship with your kids? They never had that. It was just you do the best you can. That's what they all thought.
Get by, put food on the table, and
be there.
Yeah, and instill some discipline, which for them was beating the shit out of us. Like,
whoop them.
Yeah, like for them, you know, that's crazy. But
the intention was there. They did it out of love because that's what they thought was best. So I really try to look back on that and like try to be super understanding. And back to Joe Rogan again. I know I bring him up way too much. My parents always laugh at me for this one.
All roads lead back to
all
Joe.
All roads lead to Rogan. He talks about seeing people as babies. And if you can try to do that, like look at people as children, be like, why is this lady at the grocery store screaming at me because we bumped carts? Well, probably because when she was a kid and she pushed the grocery cart in the store, her mom would yell at her if she ran over her foot. Like that's a dumb example, but it could be that easy.
Like super small like that. For sure.
And to give them that like leash to be like, all right, fair enough, lady, you can be psycho. I'm just going to move on. Like, have a nice day.
Right. And not have to harbor any anger towards her and just realize,
that's a 6-year-old that's crying and yelling at me right now. That's not a grown woman.
Right. Well, hey, dude, the only issue that we're running into...
Recording limit?
It's my battery.
Okay.
No, so we could keep recording all we want. We're at an hour and 17, which I feel like is... My longest podcast ever. So that's
great episode, dude.
Yeah, man. I feel like what we did is we had some buzzwords. We had the commonplace book, and we just wrote out some things that we both agreed that were topics that we're interested in. And dude, we dang near hit every single one.
Absolutely, I think we covered it. I mean, that was really a fun episode. I think we could do hours and hours. We could do a podcast every week and have more stuff to say.
Yeah, man. And that's the crazy thing is it took us a little bit. In the beginning, I'm thinking about my posture. I'm like, are we talking about the right thing? And then it's like you hit that breaking point where it's like
you settle in,
boom, an hour's gone by.
Yep.
It's crazy, man. Well, hey, I just want to say thank you so much for being a guest on the pod, and I'm a guest on your pod too.
Absolutely.
So you're recording a podcast. for Screaming Into the Void.
Yep.
And this one is for Give Me the Keys. So I drop them quick. I'm going to hopefully put this out like tomorrow.
Beautiful.
Pretty much. But just want to say, dude, thank you so much. More
Thank
to come.
you, bro.
More to come.
It was great. Pleasure to meet you. Very fun podcasting. This is by far one of my favorite podcasts I've ever done.
Hell yeah. We did it right.
Absolutely.
For sure, man. All right, guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Love you guys. Merry Christmas. See ya.
Peace. Hell yeah.